I will write down all the questions that are difficult for him, and you can find me later to answer them. But building on what Mona presented and on a lot of questions that many of us have around what can we do with existing services, and particularly in this analysis, we wanted, Bolade and the team, wanted to understand how social protection that is existing in these 6 countries may be linked to differences, hopefully reductions, in self-reported HIV behaviors amongst young people, adolescents and young people. We all know why this social protection has the potential to do this, because poverty, inequality, and the linked hunger and structural issues continue to be persistent drivers to HIV exposure and acquisition in adolescents and young people and all of our communities, and that we have different types of social protection. So every country has its own systems. In Zambia, I think you have social transfers, pensions, yeah? Do you have educational support, scholarships going to uniforms, maybe a dignity pack, and then perhaps food support? So maybe getting a package when the family is in distress or during a time of flood, or agricultural support like seeds for planting. And these are the 3 types of social protection that this analysis looked at. And the analysis is in 6 different countries. It included data from 37,317 15 to 24-year-olds, and this is the FIA data. I'm going to stumble on the acronym, and I won't try now just to save time, but those are the countries and the sample size at the top. Young people from Eswatini, Lesotho, Malawi, Namibia, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. And you can see that there are some differences by countries, but there's also similar. The data sets are nationally representative. Rural residents was similar, about 2/3 across countries. Just over half had secondary or higher education in this pooled data set. Only just under 1 out of 10 received any kind of social transfer. 4% had educational support, 6% food support, and 1 in 5, 18%, reported engaging in one of several sexual risk practices. And you'll see at the bottom there that there were some differences across countries. For example, in terms of social transfers, Zambia had a 4% cover reported by young people compared to 32% in Namibia. This is just what countries are offering. We did not control this, but it's worth knowing. This is the results. It's very complicated, so bear with me as I walk you through this. At the top, A, B, and C are the HIV-related risks that we are trying to reduce. Condomless sex, multiple sexual partnerships, and high-risk sex. And I think the high-risk sex is particularly relevant to think because it's very conservative. It's saying you didn't use a condom when you have in the context of sex with an older partner, when you had multiple sexual partners, or when you had sex with a partner that was much older than you. So it's quite conservative, because we don't want to say that just anytime you have sex with someone 5 years older, it's just always unsafe. So in this case, it was saying you didn't use a condom in that context. And what we can see, these are the 6 countries. I'm not going to go country by country, but you can see that if it's to the left of that dotted line in the middle, that's a good thing, okay? If it's to the right, it's not a good thing, because to the left, it means that there is less of high-risk sex, less of multiple sexual partnerships, and less of condomless sex. And what you'll see is that educational support, that black square, is often to the left of the dotted line. Can you see that? Move your eye from top to bottom, sorry. And food support is not, it's not actually always making a difference. So you can see in Namibia, for example, it's linked to reduced condomless sex and high-risk sex. And social transfers, more broadly, you can see that they're making a difference in Eswatini, both for condomless sex and high-risk sex, and in Namibia and in Malawi. So, to summarize, all 3 types of social protection could help prevent condomless sex and the 2 other high-risk practices. Educational support is protective across multiple countries for both condomless sex and high-risk sex in Zimbabwe. In Eswatini, social transfers, these are existing social transfers in the country like pensions, were protective for condomless sex and high-risk sex, and in Namibia, food support was particularly protective. Now, Bolade is a curious demographer and has really, really good data skills. So he wanted to check, is there a difference between these changes amongst adolescent boys and adolescent girls? Sorry, adolescents and young people who have identified in the survey as girls and boys. And this is very binary, so I want to acknowledge that. But surveys give you a variable. So this is what the variable says. It's not what the young people feel and identify as. Just want to acknowledge that. But when we're looking at, and the group was about 50-50 in how they identified, male and female, what we see is that there's lower odds in both adolescent boys and girls when we compare those that didn't receive and to those who received social transfers. But that the difference, this is the bars to the second set of bars, the difference is bigger between the red bar for adolescent females and the blue bar. When it comes to multiple sexual partnerships, the difference is there for adolescent boys, and the change is similar for high-risk sex. Bolade also did this for education and food support, and what he noted in the pattern, I am running out of time, so I won't go one bar at a time, is that the effect actually seems to be, this difference we observe is amongst adolescent girls and young women. And you can see this because if you compare the red and the light blue bars that are next on top of female, they all have a bigger difference from each other. This is quite early analysis, and it's cross-sectional data. The FIA are really great national data sets, but they're still a one-time point. So you ask, so we don't know, but it is real data from what families received. So it highlights these three different types and the potential that they have, and particularly education and food support for adolescent girls and young women. So it's something for us to think about, but also the power of social protection platforms that exist in our countries. So in Eswatini, the social protection platform is a very specific kind. Could it be made more pro-poor? Could it be used as a stepping stone to add on some additional HIV prevention or SRHR programming? And that's where the scalability element may be very relevant. Thank you to Bolade and everyone else in the authorship team. All the errors are mine, and all the questions, I'll write them down for him. Zikomo.